Hello and welcome to News Central TV. My name is Mazino Appeal. Here are the stories making headlines beyond the continent. Let's begin in Europe, where Romanian President Klaus Iohannis has announced his resignation, citing the need to prevent a crisis with both internal and international repercussions. Now, his decision follows mounting pressure after a court ruling annulled Romania's presidential election last year, sparking mass protests. Last month, tens of thousands of Romanians, led by far-right groups, took to the streets, with some demanding his resignation. The far-right has gained significant ground, securing a third of the votes in December's parliamentary elections. Senate President and Liberal Party leader Ilie Bolojan is also expected to step in as interim president. Meanwhile, Romania is set for a fresh presidential election, with the first round scheduled for May 4 and a possible runoff on May 18 if no candidate secures over 50% of the vote.
Și pe cetățenii români de această criză, de această evoluție inutilă și negativă, demisionez din funcția de președinte al României. Voi pleca din funcție poimâine, pe 12 februarie. Dumnezeu să binecuvânteze România. Peste puține zile, în Parlamentul României se va vota suspendarea mea și România va intra în criză. România va intra în criză pentru că se declanșează referendumul de demitere a președintelui. Acest întreg demers va avea efecte în plan intern și va avea efecte, din păcate, și în plan extern. Este un demers nefondat, pentru că niciodată, repet, niciodată n-am încălcat Constituția și este un demers păgubos, pentru că de aici toată lumea pierde, nimeni.
Residents of Pristina, Kosovo's capital, have expressed mixed reactions following elections in which Prime Minister Albin Kurti's ruling party is projected to win the most parliamentary seats, but fall short of a majority. The election was largely contested between Kurti's push to eliminate Serbia's influence in the Balkan nation and the opposition's promise to revive the struggling economy in one of Europe's poorest regions. With no party securing a clear majority in the 120-seat parliament, Kosovo is expected to face prolonged coalition negotiations in the coming days or weeks. Meanwhile, 20 parliamentary seats are reserved for minority groups, including 10 for Kosovo's ethnic Serbs, who remain vastly outnumbered by the ethnic Albanian majority. The political landscape remains uncertain as parties seek alliances to form the next government.
Po rezultatën e konkret që që do të vendosin populli I Kosovës, besoj që janë rezultate të pritshme. Një ndryshim do të më bëj.
Para shumë e kom pritur të rezultat që ka dalë. Jam I kënaqur, në zgjedhjet kanë shku perfekt. Mendoj që janë mas mire në rajon pa hile.
Unë momentalisht nuk jam I kënaqur hiç. Se kjo qeveri që po premton me ardh është më e keqe se sa kon. Edhe nuk po mund me kuptu qysh populli nuk e kupton. Një kryeministër me gjitha të rrejtje, gjuhë të rrejtjes nuk ka pa kërkun botë.
French Prime Minister François Bayrou has announced plans to invoke Article 49.3 of the Constitution once again to push through the expenditure portion of the 2025 Social Security budget without a vote in the National Assembly. Now, this move follows the Assembly's rejection of a no-confidence motion filed by La France Insoumise party, which opposes Bayrou's earlier use of Article 49.3 to pass the revenue section of the budget. Now, the constitutional provision allows the government to bypass parliamentary approval, a tactic that has sparked criticism from opposition parties. As tensions rise, political debates is expected to intensify over the Prime Minister's repeated use of the controversial mechanism. Now, farmers in Bayonne, southwest France, staged a protest on Monday against the EU-Mercosur trade treaty, demanding lower energy taxes and greater protection for European agriculture. About 30 farmers gathered at a roundabout, hoping to block highway access with their tractors in opposition to the trade deal between the European Union and Latin American nations. The EU Commission had announced in January plans to create a €1 billion fund to support European farmers who may suffer losses under the agreement. However, the fund is part of a 2028 to 34 budget, which is yet to be negotiated. Farmers argue that the deal would expose them to unfair competition from Latin American producers who face fewer regulations and lower costs. However, EU officials insist that the pact would create valuable export opportunities while including strong protections for sensitive sectors.
On s'en rend compte. Et tout ça, on n'est pas aidé par les pouvoirs publics, on n'est pas aidé par la politique, on n'est pas écouté par nos chefs aussi. C'est pour ça qu'à un moment donné, voilà, on est à syndiquer là, tous ensemble, parce qu'à un moment donné, voilà, on cherche à se faire entendre, à revendiquer nos vrais problèmes. Oui, mais je pense qu'il est un vrai politique, donc il va dire oui par devant et pas faire grand-chose par derrière. Je pense qu'il n'a pas 30 ans de pouvoir.
And farmers and activists gathered in Whitehall and Parliament Square on Monday, staging a mass protest against government policies they say are harming British agriculture. Backed by the groups No Farmers, No Food and Reform UK, demonstrators drove tractors and even stationed tanks near government offices to highlight their concerns. They're protesting against rising operational costs, cheap import undercutting local produce, and strict environmental regulations, which they argue threaten their livelihoods. The protesters are demanding urgent government action to protect domestic food production and address challenges posed by increasing costs and international trade deals. The demonstration reflects growing frustration among UK farmers, raising serious questions about the future of British farming and food security. The UN Under-Secretary General for Political and Peace-Building Affairs, Rosemary DiCarlo, has met with Cypriot President Nikos Christodoulis as efforts intensify to resolve the decades-long division of Cyprus. Now, the meeting comes ahead of a crucial March 17 to 19 summit in Switzerland, where negotiations will take place to seek a lasting solution to the island's division. DiCarlo is also set to meet with Turkish Cypriot leader Esin Tata, as well as officials from Greece and Turkey, the island's guarantor powers. Turkey, which seized the northern third of Cyprus in the 1974 invasion, still maintains 35,000 troops in the region and has vowed that its forces will never withdraw. The long-standing Cyprus dispute remains one of the world's most complex frozen conflicts, with multiple past attempts at reunification failing to yield results.
We discussed preparations for the upcoming meeting in Geneva next month. I assured him of the Secretary General's strong commitment to work with the parties on this issue going forward. Also, I did meet earlier today with the Turkish Cypriot leader. I will also be meeting with a group of women representatives who are very engaged in peace processes and have been engaged over the years. And later this evening, also we'll be having dinner with the negotiators from both sides.
Now we're going on a short break. When we return, Israeli Minister Smotrich issues warning to West Bank Arab residents. This and more when we get back. Stay with us. Welcome back. In Northern America, President Trump has defended Elon Musk's drive to shut down sections of the U.S. government amid legal challenges, transparency concerns, and questions over conflicts of interest. Democrats have accused Musk of personally benefiting from some of the changes that the Trump administration is trying to push through, such as the proposed closure of the U.S. Agency for International Development. But is his power going unchecked is the question. Well, for News Central, international correspondent Afia Hagen has more.
The immense and shadowy influence of Elon Musk continues to expand as he identifies new targets for his systematic dismantling of federal government institutions. The chief of President Donald Trump's Department of Government Efficiency is zeroing in on his next objective, an autonomous government body established to protect American citizens from the financial sector excesses that triggered the Great Recession. Staff at the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau received an unexpected directive instructing them to work from home this week as the watchdog's Washington, D.C. headquarters would be shuttered. The organization, long a target of Republican criticism, appears to be following a similar directory as the U.S. Agency for International Development, which has preserved countless lives globally and championed democracy for decades, but which Musk has systematically dismantled. Trump dismissed USAID as crazy and a big scam in his Sunday statement. However, Musk's position wielding unelected authority stands without precedent. As the world's wealthiest individual, he is terminating or suspending government employees, undermining American soft power globally, and gaining access to sensitive data, potentially affecting millions of Americans, all without any oversight. Several courts have now intervened to temporarily block Trump and Musk's initiatives. People have taken to the streets to protest the new Trump-Musk regime. However, events are moving towards one of the most significant confrontations over presidential authority in recent history, destined for consideration by a Supreme Court whose conservative majority favours broad executive powers. Many observers have speculated that Musk and Trump's alliance would eventually fracture, given the volatile temperaments and mutual desire for dominance. Yet Trump shows no public indication of growing weary of the Tesla founder, who serves as the primary executor of the president's agenda of vengeance and disruption. As the 2026 midterm elections approach, the Republican Party finds itself compelled to maintain cordial relations with the ex-proprietor, who's invested substantial sums in Trump's campaign and other Republican candidates in the previous year. For News Central, I'm Afia Hagen.
Now, for more on this, I'm joined by our international correspondent, Afia Hagen herself. Afia, good evening. Thank you very much for joining us once again. And so, we've heard more from Trump on his plan for Gaza. So what can you tell us?
Well, yes, there was an interview with Fox News that Trump did yesterday, and that's where we're getting these new lines on Trump's approach to Gaza. Now, he's doubled down, saying that America is still very interested in buying Gaza and basically carving it up as real estate. Now, he said that this is his Gaza takeover plan, that it will be going ahead. And he was asked if Palestinian people would have the right to return to Gaza, to which he said no, they wouldn't, because they're going to have much better housing. He said he's talking about building a permanent place for them, and has suggested there could be as many as 6 different sites for Palestinians to live outside Gaza, that they're going to build beautiful communities, and saying, in the meantime, I would own this. I would own this. Not we, not the United States. I would own this. Think of this as a real estate development for the future. It would be a beautiful piece of land, no big money spent. He says that Gaza is not habitable, and it could be years before anybody would want to live there. And that basically is the Palestinians being told in the most starkest terms that they should leave their land. Now, let's always remind ourselves that that piece of land, Gaza, is not necessarily for sale. Trump can't just buy it and assume it. But it does seem like this idea is something that wasn't mentioned on the campaign trail, that seems to speak to this kind of imperialist nature that Trump has, whether it's Greenland, whether it's renaming the Gulf of Mexico, whether it's the Panama Canal, whether it's making Canada the 51st state, and now it's buying Gaza. It does seem to speak to this kind of imperialist nature that Trump has adopted.
And that's not the only issue or contentious issue. What can you tell us on the latest with the trade war with China and the rest of the world?
Well, this time last week, we were talking about 10% tariffs that Trump had imposed on China. This week, we're talking about the reverse tariffs that China have imposed on the United States. Now, they have imposed tariffs on things like coal, on gas, on pickup trucks. They're now probing into Google as well. They've added Calvin Klein to a list of unreliable entities. So China has set their own tariffs against the United States, but also Trump has said today that he's going to put a 25% tariff on steel imports and 10% on aluminium imports from Canada, Mexico, and the European Union. Well, from worldwide, but they will mainly be from those places. Now, he had this in place in his first term, and after a year, they were removed. But he has said there will be a 25% import tax on steel and aluminium, and that's going to really impact Canada, and that caused him again to reinforce those comments that Canada should become the 51st state.
And what has been the reaction to his latest tariff plans?
Well, the German Chancellor has said that the German Chancellor has said that counter tariffs should be absolutely expected. The European Union is now just waiting formal notice that tariffs will be imposed against them, and there will be counter tariffs. Now, the United Kingdom has said that it is bracing itself for this tariff announcement. UK Steel, which represents the sector, has said that it would be a devastating blow and it would be deeply disappointing. And the UK government said it is ready and poised to act if tariffs come into place. The UK government said they haven't seen any detailed proposals, but will engage as appropriate.
Well, Afia, thank you once again, and have a very good rest of the evening.
You too.
Now, in the Middle East, Israeli Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich has warned Arab residents of the West Bank against engaging in or supporting terrorism, stating that they could face the same fate as Gaza's population. Speaking at Knesset, Smotrich, the far-right minister, claimed that residents might be forced to migrate and seek a new life in other countries if they continue supporting militant activities. His remarks comes just as Hamas announced the indefinite postponement of the next hostage prisoner exchange under a fragile truce agreement with Israel. Moving on now, in the meantime, dozens gathered outside of Jerusalem court on Monday to protest the arrest of two Palestinian booksellers, Mahmoud and Ahmad Muna, from the Education Bookshop in East Jerusalem. They held placards accusing the country of cowardice and fascism. The pair, arrested on Sunday, were accused by Israeli police of selling books that allegedly incites terrorism. Authorities claim the seized books contained nationalist Palestinian themes. The booksellers were set to appear in court for arraignment, with police seeking an extension on their detention. The protesters denounced Israel's actions, calling the country a fascist state and accusing it of stifling Palestinian culture. International figures, including UN Special Rapporteur Francesca Albanese, condemned the raid, highlighting the educational bookshop's role as a cultural and intellectual hub in East Jerusalem. The Muna family's lawyer confirmed the hundreds of books had been confiscated during the operation.
Yesterday when we had been sitting here and we saw two cars, police with civilian, and they came, attacked the two library shops, one for English books and the other one is for Arab books. They searching books, and take a lot of books, and they took it away from the library to the cars, and they arrested two persons and went.
Every book that have a Palestinian flag or Palestinian icons, they just took it without understanding what's the book is telling about. A lot of books of Israeli writers were taken yesterday by them. Then they lead Mahmoud and Ahmad, they arrested them and lead them to the police station in
Iranian President Pezeshkian has accused U.S. President Donald Trump of attempting to bring Iran to its knees as the nation marks 46 years since the Islamic Revolution on Monday. Addressing attendees at the anniversary event, he claimed the U.S. is working to weaken Iran by sowing division, but insisted that national unity could help the country overcome its challenges. Thousands of Iranians gathered in public spaces across the country celebrating with pop songs and patriotic ballads as they commemorated the 1979 revolution that led to the overthrow of Shah Mohammad Reza and the establishment of the Islamic Republic. These celebrations are part of a 10-day event that begins every year on January 31st, marking the return of Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini from exile and the start of a new era in Iranian history.
ترامپ میاد اعلام میکنه که من میخوام بیایم گفتگو کنیم. بعد همونجا که میگه گفتگو کنیم تمام توطئه‌های ممکن رو برای به زانو در آوردن این انقلاب برمی‌داره، امضا میکنه، اعلام میکنه.
اصلا فایده‌ای نداره چون اثبات شده که آمریکا دروغ میگه. چون سالهای پیش هم که مذاکره کردن حتی اون امتیازات زیادی هم که بهشون دادن ترامپ اومد و به یک پاره کرد و همه چی رو زیرش زد و بنابراین به آمریکا اصلا نمیشه اعتماد کرد.
همش دروغه. تاریخ همیشه دو بار تکرار میشه. یک بار به صورت جدی و بار دوم به صورت کمدی. برجام نه در ایران بلکه در کشور.
And that's all on Beyond the Continent. To remember now, you can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV, and of course on YouTube. Many thanks for watching. My name is Mazino Appeal.